When you hear Canadian cities, you probably think about Toronto or Vancouver, maybe Calgary, but today I want to put Winnipeg on the map. Okay, so welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about Winnipeg. So let's get into it. Winnipeg is the 7th largest city in Canada, and it is almost exactly in the center of the entire country. The unique thing about Winnipeg is that the province actually has a population of about 1.4 million, and the city of Winnipeg is around 875,000, meaning about 63% of Manitobans actually live in the Winnipeg greater area. This is why over the past few years, we've seen explosions in infrastructure and new housing developments and other big projects like the North End Water Sewage Treatment Plant in Winnipeg. In fact, projections from February of 2023 have Winnipeg reaching the 1 million population mark by as early as 2033. However, just 8 months earlier, in June of 2022, that projection had us reaching 1 million people by 2034. So I wouldn't be surprised if we hit the 1 million mark even sooner than we're projecting. I've even seen some projections having us hit the 1 million mark around 2030 or 2031. So if Winnipeg's population is going to grow over the next decade, how does the job economy look? Winnipeg's economy is largely driven by agriculture, with companies like Richardson and Monsanto, and manufacturing with large companies like Boeing or New Flyer. Winnipeg actually has one of the largest aerospace manufacturing industries in Canada. This means that Winnipeg's economy is actually very robust and not as vulnerable to economic downturns or recessions as other major Canadian cities. Winnipeg is also home to a ton of small businesses, which makes it a great place for entrepreneurs to start a career path in something that they've always been passionate about. An interesting fact is that a lot of companies will actually test out new app ideas in Winnipeg because they have such a adoptability of new ideas and new businesses. Now, with the job security that comes in Winnipeg, you're probably wondering what the average salary is. Average salary in Winnipeg right now is at $51,000, which at first glance doesn't seem like a lot, but when you factor in the living costs in Winnipeg, it's actually not that bad. For example, in December of 2023, the most recent month, the average house price was around $375,000. Now, if you compare that to other cities where the housing price is maybe 2 or 3 times more, but your salary is not 2 or 3 times more, Winnipeg is definitely a more affordable option. And this makes Winnipeg a much more appealing choice over other Canadian cities. Now, at this time, I know that if you know anything about Winnipeg, you were probably thinking about the one large disadvantage that you hear about all the time, and that's the weather. And I will admit that it does get cold here in the winter, and at some point during almost every year, I question why I in fact live here in this freezing tundra. But I do want to clear up some rumors about Winnipeg that just frankly aren't true. Now, although we get the nickname Winterpeg, Winnipeg actually only has about 1 or 2 weeks where the temperature is really cold. In fact, in this most recent year of 2023, the temperature only dipped below negative 30 degrees Celsius 7 times. So that's about a week of cold temperatures, or I guess really cold temperatures, with the coldest day being at negative 33.4 degrees Celsius. On the flip side though, in 2023 we had 68 days in the summer where the temperature was above 26 degrees Celsius, with the highest being 36 degrees Celsius, which we hit 3 times. Now, in my opinion, that's actually a very comfortable temperature range. It's not getting up to temperatures where you're too hot or you have to run your AC all day or you can't go outside because it's too hot, but you can actually enjoy the outdoor activities that we have here in the city. Now, you can ask yourself, is the 7 days of negative 30 degrees Celsius worth the 68 of over 26 degrees Celsius? I think so. I really do. The summers in Winnipeg are actually very nice, and there is a reason that a lot of people choose to move here. And a part of those summers being really nice is the reason why we actually have the most pools per capita out of any Canadian city, which is kind of crazy because for almost half of the year, you can't really swim in your pool. For those who don't want to have a pool in their backyard, a lot of them choose to have cabins on the lake where they can go swimming or go sit at the beach or go near to campgrounds or enjoy the small town living and getting out of the busyness of the city. And so that brings us into the next topic, which is what are the things to do in Winnipeg? As we talked about previously, Winnipeg has so many small businesses, and the largest facet of those businesses is actually restaurants and bars. It is nearly impossible to try every new restaurant here in Winnipeg, and that sort of adds an adventure when you're living here because you can always be spontaneous and try something that you haven't tried before. Maybe you'll find your new favorite spot. And Winnipeg also has a very thriving craft beer scene. And so when you combine these together with the craft beer scene and all the new restaurants, you get a bunch of different combinations that can really work well together, and you can have lots of enjoyable evenings in the summer. Winnipeg loves to have pop-up patios or pop-up bars, come up in Assiniboine Park, or curling clubs during the summer where you can go sit outside and enjoy spending time with friends or family. Winnipeg is also only an hour and a half from two different cabin country areas, one of them being Lake Winnipeg and the other one being the Whiteshell. If you go a little bit further past the Whiteshell, you actually get into Lake of the Woods, which is in Ontario, but lots of Manitobans go to Lake of the Woods during the summer. But you don't have to go as far as an hour and a half to enjoy the outdoor spaces here in Winnipeg. So Winnipeg actually has year-round activities that cater to those who want to get out of their house or who get cabin fever if they're stuck inside too long. In January, you can grab your skates and head down to the Forks and enjoy the river trail. And this river trail is actually at the forks of two rivers, that's why it's called the Forks, where you can skate along the river, and we actually have the world's longest river skating trail. I think last year they had it up to 7 kilometers long. In February, we have the Festival de Voyageurs, which celebrates winter sculptures and other artsy stuff, as well as the deep-rooted French cultural heritage here in Winnipeg. In summer, we have the Winnipeg Folk Fest, which is a 4-day-long experience highlighting local folk artists and other folk artists from around North America. We also have Fringe Fest, which is North America's second largest Fringe Festival, featuring over 140 different theater and performance companies that like to perform different comedy acts, dancing, ballet, etc. There's so many different performances that you can enjoy that there's always something that's catered towards you as an audience. Near the end of summer, you can wrap it up by taking a trip around the world in our Folklorama, which is a collection of pavilions that feature international cultures run by local communities here in Winnipeg. And these pavilions include food, entertainment, and local art pieces as well. And this brings me to my last point, which is that Winnipeg is about the people and the people that you get to spend time with here and enjoy. And the overwhelming feedback I get from clients or other people that move here is they're so overwhelmed with how welcoming and how warm the community is to meeting new people and welcoming them in to their homes, into their community, and to their sports teams, their schools. And so if you're considering a move to a different Canadian city and you want to live in somewhere that's more affordable, maybe it's time to start thinking about Winnipeg.